Target reported first quarter sales up almost 7%, traffic well above expectations. A defender hears that and says, see, the boycott's over. Black people are back, no harm. But a strategist, now we hear something colder, that most brands associated with black ownership just helped a retailer book a number it can wave around as proof it survived black anger. So Jay-Z didn't break the boycott, but he definitely gave its collapse a soundtrack. It's called Reasonable Doubt. Okay, if this were the only time, all right, fine. But one contradiction is an incident. But this is a pattern now. And a repeated contradiction is not a one-off incident. It's a brand position, whether you meant to take it or not. 2019, the NFL. While huge swaths of Black America were boycotting the league for blackballing Colin Kaepernick, Roc Nation signed on to help program the Super Bowl halftime show. And Hov's framing was, and I quote, "I think we've moved past kneeling. It's time to go into actionable items," which read to a lot of people like a man declaring the protest over exactly as he stepped through the door it pried open. Put them side by side. NFL, Barclays, Target, and one question runs straight through all three. Ownership. But for whom? Because here's the thing I won't take from him. He genuinely rewrote how hip-hop talks about equity and masters and generational wealth. That shift is completely real, and it's his. He can own that. But every single time ownership and solidarity have collided in public, the business has won. That's not a smear. That's 3 data points pointing in the same direction. Now the harder layer. And I'm going to be very, very careful here because this one requires precision and it also requires fairness. You know, for an artist like Jay-Z, brand equity isn't built on margins alone. It's built on authenticity capital. That's accumulated belief that the man and the myth are the same man. And Reasonable Doubt is the deed to that belief. Songs like Can't Knock the Hustle is literally a thesis statement that nobody can question how he gets his money. The entire world he's building this summer runs on the premise that he is exactly who he said he was in 1996, which is why the executive at the very top of the empire is an exposure most analysts politely skip. Desiree Perez has run Roc Nation as CEO since the end of 2019. By every account, she's an elite operator. She is also, according to reporting from the New York Daily News and other outlets, someone who, after a 1994 cocaine conspiracy arrest, cooperated with the federal government. She wore wires, helped the DEA break up major operations. She did probation later and served 9 months for a parole violation, and in January 2021, she received a full pardon from Donald Trump on his last day in office. Now, let's hold that up against the source code of the brand. The culture Reasonable Doubt helped canonize runs on one nearly inviolable commandment, and it is not subtle. Cooperation is informing, and it's a cardinal sin. It's the thing the entire mythology of the corner is organized against. So when the CEO of the house that Jay-Z built carries a documented history as a cooperating witness, and the legal closure of that chapter came by way of a Donald Trump pardon, I mean, you have to think about the value collision sitting in that organizational chart. And this isn't me reaching, by the way. The questions come from the inside culture. Damon Dash, his own Rockefeller co-founder, said publicly back in 2015 he was wary of businesses tied to that history. And when the pardon dropped, veteran DJs openly asked for answers. Now, be fair with me. Perez served her sentence. She took public accountability and she spent years on criminal justice reform, the Reform Alliance to be exact, alongside Meek Mill. And people are allowed to change. The entire moral architecture of reform depends on the belief that they can change. But here's the uncomfortable part, and it's a brand strategy point, not a moral one. Brand strategy doesn't run on what's fair. It runs on what's coherent, and the street code that gives Can't Knock the Hustle its power does not have an asterisk that reads unless she became a valued executive later. When I say the streets don't respect a cooperator, understand me. That is not my verdict on a human being, but it is the operating logic of the symbolic system Jay-Z chose to build his empire on top of. He spent 30 years drawing power from the street codes. And the contradicting is what happens when the code meets the organizational chart of Rock Nation. That's the seam in the structure, and the audience feels it, even when they can't name it. So, here's the framework that ties all of it together, and it's the spine of my whole book. Every brand runs on three forces in tension. I borrow the structure of the psyche to map them. The id. The id is raw appetite. Get the bag. Most efficient route. Any retailer necessary. The superego is your stated values. Own the block. Uplift the culture. Build Black equity. And the ego? That's the public-facing brand. The thing that has to reconcile the two. Live in front of an audience. Jay-Z's id and his superego are at open war. And this entire rollout, the museum, the library cards, the stadium, is the ego trying to referee in real time. The candlelit cathedral of Black ownership is the superego. The Target exclusive is the id. The reading list out of Marcy is the superego. A Trump pardon cooperating witness in the CEO chair is also the id. And world building is the ego's most expensive tool. Which brings us to the law. The one line I want you to leave with. You cannot outbuild a contradiction. No museum is big enough. No stadium is loud enough. No activation budget is large enough because the audience experiences the contradiction emotionally long before they articulate it intellectually. By the time they can explain why they feel uneasy, the equity has already drained out the seam. And here's the detail that proves it was a choice and not a constraint. The smallest, most damning fact in this entire story, a standard, non-Target edition was selling through his own store the entire time. I mean, he had a different front door for purchasing, but he chose the one inside the boycott in utilizing Target. And in branding, a contradiction you choose is a value statement you have now made.